once we finish connective tissue and so you can then look through the other models that will be on there and spend some time doing that as well. Have you received any emails from the library?
I called the library and I went there yesterday. They said that they have it available to use, but there are no organized sessions or anything like that. There's no teacher assistant or anyone that can do any sort of review.
That's for the entire summer?
Look at the models, I guess, like there's no organized session. Like
There's no set times for anyone to do any reviews there.
Really? Yeah, they normally have an instructor there that really works with all the students. So. All right. All right, so let's go over some epithelial. Okay, so this slide is simple squamous epithelium. And you can see, remember when you're looking at epithelial tissue, just so you should know, don't look down here. Remember, epithelial always has a free end, correct? So you always look at the edge. If you look up here, this would be the epithelium. So if you look at that and say, what is all of this? I can't, it looks like the moon. Well, it's connective tissue, but the epithelium is where the free end is. What's the free end called?
apical?
The apical surface, or apical. Okay, so this is simple squamous. So simple squamous, if you remember, is one layer thick. And it's, yes.
So, because
You have to talk a little louder so the class can hear you.
since it's lining like the open space, how are we supposed to tell if it's simple or stratified? And if like those,
Well, here's the cells right here. It's only one layer.
but can it also be multiple layers? So are we supposed to tell if it's multiple layers?
Because it's going to look like multiple layers.
You have the photo?
I'll show you this, and I'll show you stratified in a couple of minutes, all right? All right, so you can see that they are long and flat, which is squamous, so you know it's squamous right there. And you can see that it's only one layer thick of these cells. So it's simple squamous epithelium. And where would you find this? That's questions that would be asked on the exam Monday. We went over this yesterday. So yes,
The capillary lining,
capillaries, yeah, and
the alveolar process,
alveolar, right.
alveolar process.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so that's simple squamous. Let's see what else is on here. All right, this is pseudo. I'm not going to hold you responsible for identification of that. It's too advanced, so let's forget that. So this is a slide of skin, and it's stratified, keratinized squamous epithelium. Will you find this internally? Or can you find it internally? No. It's only exterior, keratinized. Keratin is a protein that's on the superficial surface of the epithelium. So, here's the epithelial tissue. Look how many layers. See this?
in the bottom corner and the magnifying glass.
Where is that?
All the way to the right, the magnifying glass. Along the bottom, yeah.
Okay, you get an A in the TV screen. Okay, so this is multiple layers of epithelium. You see it? The difference? So this is stratified, keratinized, because look at all the keratin up here. Very thick. And the reason is it acts as a protector and an insulation for the underlying tissue. So squamous epithelium. I know it doesn't look particularly squamous like the other one. The other one was very classic. But when you see keratin on top, you know it's keratinized squamous epithelium. If you see a slide like this and you see the keratin on top, that's what it is. All right, let me go to the next slide. Here's stratified non-keratinized squamous epithelium. So do you see keratin here? No. Look at all these squamous, look how thick it is. These are all squamous cells. Where would you find stratified non-keratinized squamous epithelium? Give me two locations. Raise your hand so that the whole class can hear. Yes, sir.
Inside the mouth.
Say again?
Inside the mouth.
Okay, the lining of the mouth, cheeks, yes.
Vaginal tissue?
Right, the vaginal area. Yeah.
Anywhere there's friction.
Sorry?
Anywhere there's friction.
What was that?
Anywhere there's friction.
Fissure?
Friction.
Oh, friction, yes, but I mean, I wanted to know the specific location. Okay. All right, so if you see a slide like this, it's that. Simple columnar, look at this. Classic. If anybody got that wrong, I mean, can't be more classic than that. So, this is found in the digestive area, you find it in respiratory regions, except it'll have another structure on it. What would the other structure be on the columnar cells that we spoke about? Yes? Yeah.
Female reproductive.
No, but what would another structure be on it? Yes.
The cilium?
Yeah, cilia, right. So this is simple columnar, but there's no cilia here. So you wouldn't find this particular variety in the respiratory region, but you will find it in the digestive areas, especially in the intestinal areas. Here's another slide of skin. You can see the keratin on top. You can see the squamous. These look much more squamous. So this is stratified keratinized squamous epithelium. Simple ciliated columnar epithelium. You can see the cilia up on top. See the cilia right here? They look like little hair follicles sticking up. And that you would find in respiratory regions, urethra, well, you have a little bit there, so that's not a great example. But in the respiratory area, you would have a lot. The cilia are actually very important in the respiratory area. So they're not showing it here, and it's not that plain to see, but let me explain something that should be helpful to you. So if you have columnar cells, and they're ciliated, what is the purpose of it? Well, it does help accelerate air in and out of our body. But more importantly, or as importantly, in between each of these cells is another cell, and it's called a goblet cell. Goblet cells produce mucus. And you all know what mucus is. Mucus is a thick, viscous substance that is found in the respiratory system. So why is the goblet cells there? Why is it so important? The goblet cells produce the mucus, which starts to coat the cilia. So on the sides of the cilia, it's coated or lined with that mucus or mucoid substance. It's very thick, it's sticky. You all know what mucus is like, how sticky it is. So now you breathe in, and let's say you're in an area where there's a lot of dust or debris in the air. Rather than going into the deeper obstructions of the respiratory area, it sticks to those ciliated particles. And when it gets really heavy with the debris, it creates a cough mechanism, and you start coughing, and you're blowing it out of your body. So it's a very important safety feature that we have. Has anybody ever sanded plaster, like if you have a sheetrock and you're finishing it? The dust is incredible. You really need a respiratory mask to filter it out, but some people don't. I recently had a room added in my basement, and the contractor was just in there sanding away. The dust was terrible, and he's in there coughing, and I told him to wear a respirator, and of course he said, no, I don't need it. So, but that's what it's about. So remember that when you have ciliated columnar, you also have goblet cells, which are not demonstrated here, but I thought you would be interested in that. Simple cuboidal epithelium. Okay, so these are tubules. You can see they're empty in the middle and they're surrounded by cells. And if you look at them, how could you miss it that it's not a cuboid? Totally square. So this is simple cuboidal epithelium. You would find this in the kidney tubules. You would also find it in some salivary ducts. And you can see how classic that looks. And this is the kind of thing I'll be showing you or asking you to identify on Monday. Okay, so we'll go through some slides of connective tissue, but before we do that, let me discuss it and go through the classification, etc. Let me just see what this one is about. All right, this is a handout on epithelium and connective tissue. And I'm going to go through it by each page. It's about 5 or 6 pages. So with your camera, if you would take pictures, it'll be helpful. And I'll go through a lot of this material with you.
Professor, so the only one that's ciliated is the simple columnar epithelium?
You have some others that, you have some pseudos that are, but for our purpose, that's all we're going to be concerned with. right, so here you see the types of tissue, simple squamous. It kind of gives you locations of where you can find it. Alveoli of the lung. Simple cuboidal, it gives you just a little bit of a review. Here's the stratified group. So it has the keratinized, non-keratinized, cuboidal, and transitional. It doesn't have the stratified columnar because it's very sparse in the body and we don't really bother with it. So take a picture of this, which will be helpful to you. Glands we're not going to bother with, so you don't have to worry about that material. Here's some definitions that should be helpful. Cell tissue, epithelial tissue, it gives you a definition, connective, muscle, and neural tissue. Here's the classification of epithelium, simple and stratified, and it gives you the breakdown here. Okay, so connective tissue. Connective tissue is basically support. Connective tissue is always found beneath epithelium. Because remember, epithelium is avascular and it gets its vascularity by a system of structures that can be absorbed from the connective into the epithelium. And that you go over in lecture. So let's look at the classification of connective tissue. It's right here. So connective tissue proper, and the categories are loose or areolar, dense or fibrous connective tissue. The next category is supporting connective tissue, which is divided into cartilage and bone. So we're going to be talking about cartilage in a couple of minutes. But this is the categories. And then the third category is fluid connective tissue, which is blood or lymphatics. Connective tissue have fibers, which epithelium do not. So there are three types of fibers that you can find in connective tissue. Collagen fibers, reticular, and elastic. And I'll give you some information on that in a few minutes. But that's the classification that you have to know. Connective tissue proper, supporting connective tissue, and fluid connective tissue. Classification of connective tissue. So here it's giving you examples of everything that we just talked about up there. And let's go through some of the connective tissue. So the first one that we'll talk about is fluid connective tissue. Blood is connective tissue. Blood has several components. It has solid components which would be erythrocytes, leukocytes, and thrombocytes. Those are your solid components. And then it has a liquid component called plasma. I'm sure you've all heard of plasma. So plasma is the liquid part of blood, and the solid part of blood are the red cells, white cells, and platelets. Yes?
Can you repeat these solid components again, please?
It's right here.
Oh.
The fibers of connective tissue, right there. Collagenous or collagen, reticular, and elastin.
She was asking for the,
Oh, yeah, the solid components of blood.
The what?
The solid components of blood.
Oh, I'm sorry. Red cells, white cells, and platelets. But make sure you know that it's erythrocytes, leukocytes, and thrombocytes, right? Okay, so we went over this yesterday, but let's just review it very briefly. So the white cells, the leukocytes, are divided into two major groups. Those that have granules and those that do not have granules. So eosinophil, neutrophil, and basophil have granules, and they're called granulocytes, those three. Monocyte and lymphocyte do not have granules, and they're called agranulocytes. And of course you have the platelets, which are for blood clotting, and the red cells or lymphocytes, which are for many things, but one of the primary is carrying the oxygen molecules all over the body so that the cells become oxygenated. There's a whole bunch of figures here. You don't really have to know that. That will be something you'll study next semester when you do the cardiovascular system. But this column right here, where the cursor is important to know. Neutrophils are the most common, and that's something you should know. 60 to 70% of the formed elements of blood are neutrophils. Eosinophils are 2 to 4%. Basophils are 0.15. Lymphocytes are 20 to 25. And monocytes are 3 to 8. You can see whole blood over here, that 53 to 60% is liquid, that's plasma, and 47% are formed elements. I'm not going to ask that, but it's good to know this. It helps you remember things. The more you know about it, the better the retention. Some major differences between epithelial and connective tissue. I'd like you to know that. Epithelial is very tightly packed cells with very little extracellular material. And here again in lecture you'll be doing this in a lot of detail. Connective tissue has very few cells and a great deal of extracellular material. Epithelial primary function is protection, as it says on their screen, and connective, the primary function is support. And I think I mentioned that to you before. cartilage. There are three different types of cartilage found in the body. Hyaline cartilage, sometimes called articular cartilage. So when one bone meets another bone, that's called a joint. Anatomically speaking, it's called an articulation. So joints and articulation are synonymous. So this is a bone and this is a bone. They're lined with cartilage. Cartilage is like ice. It's smooth. It's glistening. It reduces friction, and that's why our joints, when they are normal, move so freely and effortlessly. So the bones in a joint, not all of the joints in the body, but the majority, have a hyaline cartilage structure on the end of the bones, which form what we call cartilaginous joints for smooth movement. Elastic cartilage, located in the nose and pinna. Pinna is this part of the ear. And you can see, you can squash your ear and it pops right back, or you can wiggle your nose back and forth. That's because it has a lot of elastic cartilage in it. And the third one is called fibrocartilage, which is very strong. So fibrocartilage, let me show you that. Fibrocartilage has fibers in it. And it's found in several places in the body. So if we're looking at a person from the back, the vertebra will be in alignment like this. And there won't be any deviation. It should be a nice straight line. In between the vertebra are what we call the spinal discs. So the disc looks like this. It has an outer part that is fibrocartilage. And this is called the annulus fibrosus. The inner part of the disc is like a gelatinous material, and that's called the nucleus pulposus. You should know these terms. Yeah.
What is you said the substance of like the inner portion?
Say that again?
What is the substance of the inner portion?
It's a gelatinous,
Like a
jelly-like
gelatinous, yeah.
viscous material. So if the fibrocartilage tears or ruptures, and let's say you have a hole over here, this material then will slip out like that. And that's called a herniated disc. Why is it called herniated? Does anybody know? Hernia means a hole. You get an inguinal hernia over here. It's a tear in the inguinal ligament. You get ulcers in your stomach. It's a hole. It's the same thing. So this is a herniated or ulcerated, whatever you want to call it. And then this gelatinous material that seeps out presses on a spinal nerve, and that's why it's so painful. If this happens,
It makes it sound a lot worse.
the disc loses its contour, and the disc and the vertebra above it will fall out of line when you have a herniated disc. So, fibrocartilage is found in the annulus fibrosus of the disc. That's number one. Number two, this is the femur. That's the big bone in your thigh, the biggest bone of the body. And down here, you have the tibia. That's the bone in the lower leg, one of the bones in the lower leg. And right between these two bones, you have this cartilaginous structure, and it's called a meniscus. I'm sure you've all heard of that. So the meniscus is solid fibrocartilage, very strong. But as you age, this becomes a little brittle, and frequently a piece of it will break off, and that's very painful. So your knee would swell, you wouldn't be able to bend it, it would hurt, and that has to be repaired, usually surgically. This is fibrocartilage here. And the third place where you have fibrocartilage in the body is in your pelvis. These are the pelvis have two parts, a left and a right part. So this is the pelvis. They connect in the middle. It's called the pubic symphysis. And there's a fibrocartilaginous plug right there in the middle. So those are three areas where you find fibrocartilage.
So if you were to ask them, maybe then it would be in the knee cap?
No, it's between the femur, it forms the knee joint.
Okay.
The kneecap is called patella, so you should be using that terminology. And that has nothing to do with the meniscus.
So you would,
Well, it's attached to it, but it's nothing to do directly with it.
you would say it's located between the femur and the tibia?
Well, that's the knee joint.
So within the knee joint would be the answer? If you were
Or
asking where
meniscus.
you would find this,
Well, I wouldn't ask that question.
you would.
No. But I may say, give me two locations where you find fibrocartilage. So you have to know two of those. It's simple, and there's things you
What would
should
the
know.
answers be though, for those questions?
Well, the disc, spinal disc,
In spinal disc.
meniscus, or the pubic symphysis. Yes.
I was going to say, so it would be like the meniscus, the pubic symphysis, or the annulus fibrosus, right? That would be like the answer, would be like,
What was the third one?
that, is it the annulus? I can't pronounce
Well, the
it.
annulus fibrosus is the fibrocartilaginous part of the disc. The inside is called the nucleus pulposus.
Okay. But the outside of it is made of
Is
the
where the fibrocartilage is.
Okay.
Correct. Any other questions? So the elastic cartilage, you know. Remember the pinna? Who knows another name for this? Another name for the pinna is the auricle. Auricle is the ear as they're synonymous terms. Okay, so let's go to the classification again of connective tissue. You have connective tissue proper. It says loose or areolar, dense or fibrous. So I'm not going to bother you with the dense or fibrous portion, but the loose connective tissue proper, the one that you have to know is called adipose tissue, A-D-I-P-O-S-E. What type of tissue is adipose?
Fatty tissue.
Fat, right. Fatty tissue is adipose tissue. Very important. So let me show you why. Okay, this is the skin. So the upper part is called the epidermis, correct? And the lower part is the dermis. Epidermis is epithelial tissue, and the dermis is connective tissue. Correct? We did this yesterday. Directly below it is something called subcutaneous tissue. Why is it called subcutaneous? Because the skin is known as the cutaneous membrane. And that's, so the cutaneous membrane includes both the epidermis and dermis. So since the next layer is below the cutaneous membrane, it's called the subcutaneous tissue. And the upper layer of the subcutaneous tissue is fat, adipose tissue. Okay, so what is the function? Why is fat in that area so important? Number one, it protects the deeper structures like tendons, ligaments, muscle, nerve, things of that nature. So it's a protective area. Fat is very absorbent of shock. So when we're jumping or pushing or playing a sport and we're being jostled around, it's absorbing a lot of that impact. Why is it absorbed? Because it's soft. You've all seen fat. It takes the shock and distributes it properly. Let me give you an example that may be helpful. Years ago, let's say 50 years ago, cars were made out of steel. They were much heavier, and if you tapped on the fender or the door, it would be solid. I mean, it was really thick steel. And you think that would be advisable, that it would be stronger and safer. Actually not. Because if you were in a car accident then, the steel did not absorb any of the shock because of its construction. It would transfer the impact or the shock waves into the inside of the car. And passengers would be severely injured most of the time, even with a small crash. Today, cars are made up of either very thin metal or fiberglass or other plastic materials. And if you're in a car accident, I'm sure you've seen where somebody rear-ends someone else and the whole front of the car collapses. And it looks terrible, but that's absorbing the shock. And it's keeping the passenger area much safer. So, similarly, fat is kind of like the soft material that a car is made of today. It'll absorb the shock and help prevent damage to the deeper structures. So that's one primary function. Another primary function of that adipose layer is it helps to keep the temperature, the warm and cold temperature out, and keep the warmth of the body in. So it acts as an insulator. So let's see what adipose tissue looks like. I don't know if I have an example of it, but let's see. I have to switch. This is adipose tissue. It looks kind of like clouds. Or a lot of circles with emptiness inside. A classic look of adipose tissue. So that's one tissue that you will be studying tonight, is adipose. You can write it down. So let's go to the second classification, which is supporting connective tissue. And that would be bone and cartilage. So the only cartilage, this is elastic cartilage. I'm not going to hold you responsible for that identification. This is fibrocartilage. This I would like you to know, because fibrocartilage is so important in the body. So it kind of looks like that. It's a perfect example of fibrocartilage. So supporting tissue is cartilage and bone, and let's look at bone. This is a classic appearance of bone, microscopically. And let me give you the breakdown on what is going on here. So if you look at the board, you see bone is made up of units. So you can see this round area. Everybody see that? That's one unit, and that's called an osteon unit. O-S-T-E-O-N unit. Bone is made up of billions of these units that make up a bone. Okay, so let me draw an osteon unit on the blackboard or the green board. So that's an osteon unit. So it's made up of a central canal, which is in the center. What do you find in the central canal? You find a blood supply, which would be an artery and a vein, and you also have a neural supply. So it would be an artery, a vein, and a nerve found in the central canal. And you can see the black area in the middle. So this is the central canal right here. Surrounding the central canal is something called a concentric lines. Does anybody know the definition of concentric? If you chop a tree down and you're looking at the stump, you'll see something that looks like this, rings. Is everybody familiar with that? Or if you had a very still pond, body of water, and you took a rock and threw it into it, it would splash here, and then you would have these ripples. You'd have one, and then you'd have another, and another, and another, and get bigger and bigger and bigger. That's called concentric rings or concentric lines. So you have concentric rings around the central canal. The concentric rings are called lamella. Lamella. Within the concentric rings, scattered here and there all over the place, are these pockets. And they are called lacunae, Lacuna, or lacuna. So within the centric, it's like a pocket like this, like my hand is represented.
Lacuna.
And inside the lacuna live a bone cell, and it's called an osteocyte. So, an osteon unit, therefore, is made up of a unit, which is called the osteon unit, which has a central canal, which houses an artery, vein, and a nerve. And then it's surrounded by concentric rings, which are called lamella. And within the rings are these depressions or hollows called lacunae. And living in the lacunae are the live bone cells called osteocytes. So, if this is solid, which it is, it's made up of bony matrix. You'll be getting into what it's consisting of in your lecture. But it's solid. How do these bone cells survive? Because you know they need water, they need oxygen, they need nutrients. Coming off of the central canal are these microscopic tunnels that go through the bone. And they're attached to the central canal, and blood from the central canal goes through these microscopic openings and supplies the bone cell, the osteocyte, with nutrients, water, and oxygen. Those microscopic canals are called canicula, or caniculi, like canal, canicula. Those four things, lamella, lacunae, osteocytes, and canicula in the central canal make up an osteon unit. And millions, billions of these units make up your bone cells, your bone structures. So the slide of a bone will look exactly like this. Right here. So that's two things you have to know about connective tissue to identify. Adipose tissue, which is fat, and bone tissue, and fibrocartilage. So that's three things that give you. Plus,
Can you say what fibrocartilage is?
okay, let me just finish this thought. And the other thing that you have to know as far as connective tissue is concerned would be to identify the different types of blood cells, and that we did last night. So, the questions on the blood cells will be on the blood board. And could somebody hold up one of those models, please, in the tray? Yeah, and yeah, look over there. And those models that are in the trays. That's it. where? Remember the meniscus of the knee,
That's what
the spinal discs, and the pubic symphysis, which is between the two, what we call coxal bones or hip bones. Because they have to spin that, but it's not necessary. Okay, so your assignment tonight is take out your scopes and do me a favor and distribute these. New York. So you have the slide tray, and I'm going to go in and get some more slides from inside, and I'll put them over on the radiator like last time. Just give me a few minutes to get that.
Pictures that he gave us yesterday? No, nothing. Wait, what? Oh yeah, other than the photos. He gave us photos, right? That was it. So maybe.
He didn't give us photos of the body cavity.
No. Oh, so then never mind. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, we didn't go over them at all.
I'm like wondering if we should add. Because I'm almost like if we just put them on there.
Wait, which model? He yesterday mentioned briefly that he was going to
Do body cavities on the exam, and we didn't go over it at all. Like we didn't do it at all. So he was like body cavities. I'm scared.
Yeah, me too.
It's okay though. Everybody's scared together.
Yeah, exactly.
No. We're not. People are good at hiding it, but they are definitely creepy. I don't mind. I never took this out. Can I take a photo of that picture you
All right,
took
so here is
of
some
my list yesterday
blood
because
slides.
they didn't say it. Can I take a photo?
This is fibrocartilage. This is the bone slide. And this is adipose tissue.
So this is the
Look, I know it's difficult, listen to me, I know it's difficult for all of you to identify. So I'm not going to make a big deal over it in the exam. We'll just have maybe 2 or 3 slides that you have to identify. So, and they'll be easy to identify. I'll make sure that they're classic as far as configuration is concerned. And that's it. So, and there'll be some questions on epithelium and on connective tissue that you just have to fill in. And then the rest will be all of the other models that we talked about all week. So, I'm not going to overwhelm you. I'm going to try to do it so that everybody will do well on the test.
Are we
You don't have
gonna-
to worry. And you have to study, of course. Yes.
Are you gonna leave, are we gonna go over body cavities, or are we not doing that?
I don't think so.
Okay, so.
Usually we do that in, I mean, when I'm lecturing, which I do most of the time, it's one of the first, I think in 20 years, the first time I did a lecture, do body cavities. It's just there's too much material, and it would just be too confusing. So we did enough. So you'll be doing body cavities, I assume, in your lecture, and they should go. The professor should go into detail on that.
If we're off by a letter with spelling, do you mark it wrong?
Well, I mean, if it's ridiculous, yes. If it's one letter or something, I'll overlook it.
Yeah, like someone just like left it in. I thought it was me, and then I just realized that like it was like in the
Just stick it in one of the-
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Right? Oh, it might be for the box actually. It's like someone just left it.
Did everybody sign the attendance? Anybody not?
I
If anybody wants.
Okay, last call. Did everybody sign? Anybody not? Okay. So just think, after tonight, 20% of the semester is gone already.
Kind of crazy, right? Kind of
Right?
crazy.
It's only 5 weeks.
I got a few extra slides. I was just waiting because there was a slide in here. I know this is from the person before. Okay, also, this person has this showing the whatever the hell it
What
is.
was wrong with yesterday, Mary?
What the hell? Why is mine like really weird?
Mine is really weird.
Yeah, what the hell? I think
It's
so.
have to look for the microphone to test.
No, I don't think so.
Because mine never works.
Mine is like really whack right now. Like someone damaged this thing. I used to have a hard time looking through this. This is. This is definitely adipose tissue. This is definitely adipose.
Okay, it's 7:30. Let's do microscopes until 8, and then take 15 minutes and review, other materials that we went over this week.
I was telling my boyfriend because I know that I mentioned this earlier, I don't always, but he is a professor here, so he like taking masters, so he like does engineering, and I'm not crazy, but I always joke, I'm like, if I ever think you're gonna write you the craziest review.
recruit other people like Ira. We didn't even take the class. But I really
I'm like, I would never actually do that in reality because I just find that so cool. But like, I'm just like, how ritual is.
But you know, people do it just because.
Like, I'm just gaslight. I'm like, no, not actually, but.
Like, no, not really, but really.
Yeah, no, actually. Yeah. Oh, so it's human white blood cell. Yeah.
It was so great. Oh my god.
I'm jealous.
I
But
couldn't believe though. I'm so tired, but it was worth it.
it's worth it. It was great. Is your microscope still not working?
No, I think this one just never works.
You could probably just keep swaths on it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. As long as it's not numbered.
Yeah. I mean, they are, but I don't know. It doesn't matter. We'll just move it.
Yeah, it's fine.
I'm having trouble with my microscope. I tried switching it out for another one, and I'm not sure if it will just.
All right, I'll take a look in a second.
What's wrong with it?
So I'm just having trouble trying to like actually find in the cell.
I have the book right here if you want. Yeah. Here, here. You can, yeah, you can check it. I think so. I'm gonna ask him. Yeah, like here. Oh, there's like that person on the book. Yeah. I also like find it too. Just look it up online. Like I just like what about photos of this? Sometimes it's helpful. Sometimes it's not. Like it just all depends. There's like so much stuff online on the internet you can just find, and it's like, oh my god.
This is adipose tissue. It looks airy. I mean, see, the sculpt's working fine.
Excuse, are you? Yeah, I don't even know. I'll get it later. I'll get it next time.
I sent, yesterday I gave you a packet to take pictures of.
Oh yeah.
It has different bones, I mean like basophils and things. Does anybody know what that is?
The
I
packet?
don't think it was returned. Does anybody have that?
That's sus.
You're gonna get it from Knopfler, right? Whoever that is.
Given this.
But then he's not gonna put it out anymore.
Yeah, that's gonna suck. Someone has to be better. This is not cool. So you work in dialysis, I said? Yeah, okay. Very depressing. I feel like probably.
It's depressing. It's a big competition. Like going out. Now they're on the machine. So you're
Yeah. It's a lot, yeah.
it's a lot.
Do
I
you?
don't want to work from home. Like informatics or something.
Yeah, that's
I'm
what. I can't also imagine like having 4 kids and doing that.
My
I give you credit.
4:30 a.m. I'm there.
Yeah, no, that's
I'm
crazy.
hard.
No, it's hard. It's like really rough. I don't blame you for not wanting to be. Well, you probably like will also have more options when you graduate anyways, because you have experience too. That's really great. Yeah, exactly. Radiology too. I don't know. I hear great things about radiology.
It's pretty simple because you do your work and then you go.
Exactly. It's like,
What do you want to do?
I'm gonna do nursing.
It's worth it. You have a lot of options. Even as LPNs, I never worked in a nursing home. And when I graduated, they promoted only
Like working in nursing home, I was like, I just don't know if it's for me. I also have like neck issues, so I was like, I can't be like seriously lifting. I'm all for running around and moving around and doing whatever needs to be done, but I can't lift super heavy things.
You wouldn't have to live in a lot of pill pushing.
Yeah. I like, yeah, that's really cool because I got my master's in psych and I was going to go clinical psych, but it's very difficult and I like applied and the acceptance rates are like less than 10% and now they're even more competitive and like, yeah, they're like more competitive. It's more competitive and more people apply than they out of med school, but it's like, med school's more difficult. But like, yeah, it's super competitive because they're funded and I just was like, I don't want to apply again. I like being applied. Like I did research, like I did like where I would like put helmets on like people like and did like near infrared like light therapy, and I was like I like being there and like doing vitals and different things like that. So I was like I think I would enjoy being in a hospital or something more. I just don't know if I want to push pills all day though. Honestly, I feel like that's a huge part of it. You know what I mean? Like I just don't.
Well, they have
Yeah, no. Yeah, true. I like feeling there's a lot of options actually. To me, I was almost like, oh, I feel like I'd be interested in like dialysis or something. Or like, yeah.
nephrology is really big.
Yeah. Nephrology, I was like, this is super interested. Yeah.
I learned a lot.
100%. You definitely learn. Yeah. I have a lot of friends who are nurses and they all like absolutely love it. So they're like, just do it. Your schedule's flexible. Exactly. Yeah, wow. You did, yeah, you did, yeah. Exactly, you love it all, and then it's like...
So then you pick one, and then when you're tired, you pick another one.
Exactly. One thing, like, I don't think I would ever do pediatrics. Like, I just,
Our piece is fine. It's the parents. It's not the kids. It's good parents.
I feel like, I don't know.
Oh, it's the white
The friends I have though, that like my one is like hematology oncology, like children. I think that's too heavy for me. Or like my other friend is NICU, like two of them. So it's like they do good things, but I just hear them too frequently be like, I'm going to this funeral. I'm just like,
It is a lot.
I'm just like, I
Well,
personally.
you got the psych training, so you'll know.
Yeah. But for myself, I'm like, I don't know. They just are always drained. I feel like they just, I don't know.
It is a training field, especially if you're in that care.
100%.
I'm sure you will be.
Yeah, thank you.
But it's worth it.
100%. Yeah, no, I'm really excited. My dad kept telling me to do this for like the last few years. He was like, you should just go into nursing, go into nursing. And I was like, I don't really know if I have to do lifting or whatever. And then I just like, yeah, and then I reached a point where like I have friends that are also like, it just depends on your options. If you work with kids like too, they're like, it's not like you're lifting heavy people or doing whatever. And then there was other people to help and like, so I was like, you're true. So,
You'll love it. You just find your field.
exactly. That's, yeah. I'm in no rush. I was like, I would gladly work on a med surg floor and just get experience and learn different things. Just,
Would you start? You should start.
I would like to start doing. I think I'm gonna do my phlebotomy or like patient care, like technician, and like hopefully start working in a hospital. Like after these classes are done.
Right.
Like after my summer courses are done, I think I'm gonna do that in August because I'm like still working a little bit on the side, but I'm like at a point where I'm still living at home. And exactly, and I'm still have insurance until I'm 26, so it's 6 months.
There is no rush.
So I was like, you know what, let me figure this out now.
Our oldest daughter is 20.
Oh, that's awesome.
She's still at home, and we told her to take your time.
100%.
No rush.
100%. Yeah, no.
Just nothing but bills out here.
Yeah, no, for real. My parents are always like, just, you can be here forever until you're 40.
I mean,
Like,
never want to, but
yeah, no, I'm
it's
done.
worth taking your time. It's not like people. It's hard.
It's hard. But, I don't know, I love my parents, so it's everybody else I live with that's the hard.
She moved. My oldest, she moved out, but she came back.
Yeah, they do.
And she was like,
Did she go to college and then like move out and come back?
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
They had their own, her and her friends, they had their own place.
Oh, that's
and
fun.
Some of them just decided they didn't want to pay rent.
That's valid.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Where was she going to school? Oh, she was going to Florida? That's fun. Oh, that's nice.
Wherever there was a full ride, that's what we were like.
100%. No, 100%. I went away for like school and then I like came home after my first year.
Yeah.
And it was, I came home and it was like, fine. And you save money and you work. Like I worked.
She's working and she's
And there's a lot of benefits to working while in college, and like people don't tell you that, and like people get like employers are impressed by that. They're like, oh my god, you worked, and it's like, yeah.
Then if you start working now in school, it's okay. You know,
Exactly.
As far as you want to go, let them do it.
Exactly. What is your daughter? What was she, or like what is she going to school for?
She wants to do nursing.
Good for her.
I think before she was like doing paralegal stuff.
I'm in the legal field right now, and I absolutely hate it. I don't recommend it.
She said it was very competitive. She didn't like it.
It's just not for everybody. It's not. And not in a way that it's competitive. Because a lot of things are competitive, but like if you do not find joy in that work, that's not. No.
She was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm like, all right.
No, I don't blame her. I absolutely hate it.
So then she said,
Even my boss, who's an attorney, hates it. Like everybody hates it.
traveling, that's what she wants to do.
That's a great job to do.
Because we have, one of our friends does it, and they like fly us everywhere, but
Yeah, that's awesome.
she was like, she learns a lot, but
Yeah.
and they're not,
When you're
unfortunately, they're not expecting much of you because you're
Exactly.
not there long, but
Yeah.
she gets the experience.
you're like not like if you're not tied down to anything or anyone, do while you're young. Enjoy it.
That's what I told her. Go now before you know, soon
She might find somewhere she wants to settle down. Exactly.
You won't want to do this.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I was like, at this point, I wouldn't do travel nursing. But if I had done it a few years ago, but I even had a friend who, one of my best friends moved to San Diego as a nurse. Like, she just picked up and was like, I want to go, and I'm going. She got a job. Like, it just works out. And she just did it. And I was like, good for you. Like, it's stable. And, like, no one's gonna...
You'll always have a job.
Exactly, and that's the most important thing I would say nowadays, to be able to say you can. I always say there's like robots take over everything, but like you can't have robot nurses, so.
The robots have taken over like that. You're scanning everything for medication and it automatically pops over. But you still need nurses to operate those things.
Exactly.
So not yet. They haven't pushed us out yet.
Exactly.
That's all that's right. You don't always want to do nursing.
Exactly. Yeah, this sounds like a bad sign. And you're also an LPN, right? You said that you are? Where do you work?
I work in an allergist office
In a what?
an allergy.
Oh, that's cool. Do you like it?
LPN.
Or you want to go back to?
Yeah, I want to go back. It's been, I graduated last year, so I have exactly a year.
Good for you.
Congratulations. And you're going back for your RN? Yeah, so there's an LPN.
There's a lot of, yeah,
I Suffolk, it's in like, I think it's
Wait,
12
Suffolk
months.
does, you could do like it there, Suffolk?
I think so.
Oh, that's
I mean, I think I have to pray a little more because I did a national, but yeah, that's what I'm aiming for.
That's awesome.
The RN from their start from Suffolk.
Oh, you would get your RN, and then if you like, you could go back for your BSN after, right?
But
Yeah. So you can
yeah,
come,
yes,
you can
yes.
be an RN, but you just get paid a little bit less until you get your BSN, or they give you a certain amount of time like to get your BSN. Because I thought about doing my RN and then going into it, but like if I was already in the field, I would probably consider it. But like, if I'm not gonna like reapply to school, I'm like I might as well just go straight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my sister's
Yeah.
Oh, she's
But,
still
like,
accelerated or like a regular? Regular. She's graduating in high school this year, so she's
Oh, okay, that makes
sense. Yeah, she's
Oh,
about to
that's
go into
good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Really proud.
It's good.
Congratulations. Thanks. Yeah. So yeah, I'm doing that. Yeah.
That's awesome. Good for you. You know, Farmingdale has like the 3-year program too at Duchesne. They don't have like a
Straight from LPN.
or anything like that. Like
I don't know why they're so short nurses. I don't know why.
I don't know why Farmingdale doesn't
And
have a
like
great
we
program.
have already such an advantage as an LPN because there's a lot like these classes I took when I was in finance like isn't extensive.
Mhm.
So it's like I don't know. We should just have a lot more programs like that.
They should have more bridge programs.
It's hard to
Yeah.
find in New York. In other states they have, but in New York
Mm.
it's really hard to find some LPNs or BSN programs.
Like 90% of my unit is still in Excelsior. They're all
Yeah.
LPNs.
Yeah,
But
but I have my like I don't know.
I'm not an online learner.
That's okay. Not everybody
Right,
is.
yeah.
I'm not the same exact way. I hate taking online exams. Like I do not like that stuff just isn't
Like I
fun.
did hearing. What was that class?
Where would I
I
find
did it
the
online. and I
test
was like,
slides?
Yeah, no, it's a lot of work online.
bioethics, I think.
Yeah,
I
no,
did it
it's a lot
online.
because they have to give you a certain amount of hours worth of work.
Okay.
And I also feel like you don't end up studying. At least I don't study. Someone goes to open notes, I don't study, and then I end up not doing well. Like if I have to memorize everything, it's a completely different story. A lot of my like even grad school exams were like online. I hated it. Like I hated online exams.
Yeah, Excelsior's like a big one, but no.
That's valid. Listen, whatever way works best for you. Like, there's no need to like kind of push the bounds of like what you know you can do, and you know.
Oh yes, thanks.
So, let's clear that out.
Try this one if you don't mind. Some of these aren't even numbered.
I'm just like, zoom in, then 132 road.
You put some on the back. Yeah, you're done. You said, oh, it's the back then. Yeah, no problem. I see it. Thanks. I was like, oh.
technology words or something to do with like models?
No, I like said it was something to do with a microscope or something that like he like looped back and like was like, this is a word I actually forgot to tell you guys. Now I'm forgetting it. That's fine.
You said it yesterday?
Yeah. I wrote it down.
All right, it's 8 o'clock. I mean, you can continue looking at the scopes if you prefer. It's up to you. Or
Sometimes
you
if
can
you
start
said something in
looking at the
particular,
model.
like outwriting.
I know.
It's your call, whatever you want. If you finish with the scope, put it away, but don't forget to return the slides to their proper place, please. The slide tray or the...
Monday, right?
Yeah.
I just took some photos of all of them because I was like, we'll look at them at home. Yeah, I'm just gonna memorize exactly which one. Exactly. I'm like, okay. And you can use the one board too, the skin board. So. Skin board, yeah.
Yeah, well, these are the...
Is the basil field?
Huh?
Is in the basil field?
If it's a kid, no, wait.
Oh, no, it's like... Look at the 3 neutrophil, 2 eosinophil. That is lymphocyte, like a high
Early and phase later. They're both active. Like these are both from... Well, early and late. Not really late.
Sometimes you pay the function.
I know. Oh yeah, Smarties.
But I don't know which one is using for basil field.
So next week, we start the skeletal system. So Monday, you'll have the exam and then you can leave when you're finished. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday will be the skeletal system. And then the following Monday would be the flag fest on the Skeleton.
So we not both the same day, right? Yeah.
Neutrophils are the most common, he said, but there's more those than anything.
What he said?
He said these are neutrophils on here, but I don't see how they're not very long. These are the lymphocytes.
Yeah, they make more sense. Or he said they're specifically neutrophils.
These. 1, 2, 3. That's what he counted. He was 1, 2, 3, 1, 2.
All have three. That's the kidney, like
Kidney shape 1 with xenophil.
I don't remember. I have to like do those later. I feel like.
And he likes that. Hello.
Which one?
Which one is?
This is monocyte because it only has one. It's like the kidney. Mono one.
This one is like the kidney. So then this one is not the monocyte, or are they both? And
I think it's the same
different,
thing.
Yeah, different color.
I think there's both. Maybe the because there's more separation. Like this is two lobes.
This
Or-
is xenophil.
Wait, I think this.
I do think they're the same. Because I noticed that one of them are the same. Because this would also then be a xenophil.
Wait, can I see that one? I'm sorry, I was eavesdropping.
Which
Yeah,
one?
he's gonna.
Wait, are these the same?
Sorry?
What are they?
Yeah, that's macrophage
They're both.
or monocyte.
Okay,
both
yeah, they're both the
monocytes?
same.
Yeah, I'd say so, yeah.
And this is the lymphocyte?
It's what?
Lymphocyte?
Correct.
Neutrophil. Eosinophil.
Right.
But where's the basophil?
Oh, this one. This one's the
This is it.
Yeah, probably that's it. That's a better example.
Because it has the black dot.
Well,
Because this has red dots.
Does it matter if they're black?
the granules, that's,
The granules.
This is.
Basophil.
I can't see from here.
I know. Because it has the red.
No. That would be a neutrophil.
That's 1, 2, 3.
It's a lymphocyte. This is a macrophage or monocyte. It's a monocyte.
Erythrocyte.
Yeah, that would never end.
These are. That's a monocyte. You said.
Right.
Because it's a big blob.
What is this little thing?
That's the platelet plus.
Not a fish? Sure.
Not fish. You said.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a platelet.
Platelet plus the platelet.
Yeah, the platelet plug is like the thing that comes off
Well,
of it, right?
platelet would be fine. What is this?
Okay.
Like lunar,
Oh,
lympho,
because
lunar.
there's-
You could think like moon shape. Like that's how I think of like a moon shaped lunar
That would be more of a
lymphocyte.
basophil.
No, that's a lymphocyte.
You know, like this has moon.
Wow.
That one's fully covered.
They're just showing you, but it's
But it's
the
like
same
I would look
thing.
more the shape of like the
It's a lymph-
nucleus.
yeah,
Like you know what I mean?
they're
Like
both
look more like they're both like
They're both
round
lymphocytes,
shape, like the
right.
you know what I mean?
Got it.
It's like more like moon. Both are like more circular. So
What about this? You know this?
oh, that I need to memorize, but that I haven't gotten to yet.
Nuclear shell. The nuclear shell.
There's going to be a lot of questions on
There's
this.
rough endoplasmic reticulum, and then
What-
there's the
what makes-
ribosomes.
What makes it rough?
Oh, the
ribosomes.
ribosomes on it,
The
which carry
ribosomes.
the nucleic acid
The
inside.
ribosomes. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are the
Centriole.
Okay. I
The
was
yellow
gonna
is
say
the centriole.
Centriole.
And the black around it is the centrosome.
Okay.
And what are these little dots here?
The duck? No.
That I haven't looked at.
The secretory vesicles,
Yeah, vesicles. Secretory
or
vesicles.
Golgi vesicles that I would accept.
You would accept either.
What is this?
The mitochondria.
Okay. And what is this structure?
The smooth,
Right.
smooth reticulum.
Endoplasmic.
Endoplasmic reticulum.
Right. And what is the yellow?
The lysomes.
Lysosome, okay, good. And that's a lysosome also.
Okay, like, okay.
Right, lysosome. What if this is a peroxisome?
What makes that a peroxide? The blue thing you were saying, or the purple? Okay. So what makes? Okay.
That's what it is.
Okay.
What's this in here?
The nucleus. Nucleolus.
Viola.
Nucleolus.
And that's the DNA material, the blue. And what's the white called?
The shell. Nuclear envelope. Nuclear shell. And then the pores.
Right.
Nuclear pores.
That's basically it. It's not hard, right?
No, that's not bad once you like understand it. Once you, yeah, learn it.
What is this? Huh? Oh. Can I look at it?
Sure. But I don't really know how to use it other than press record.
Where did you get this from? Like some spaceship or something?
I know.
No,
My
I know.
husband like
It
dug
wasn't
it out
first
the
when you got
closet.
it. I didn't know what it was when you first got it. I thought it was like a crawl food for like a hospital or something. I was like,
No, but he said he bought it.
I've
His
never seen
father
anything
bought it
like
for
that.
him.
Must be, it's old. Isn't
It's
it?
very old. It's
Yeah,
like,
because look at the size of it.
it's very old. Like that. Home
It's
Alone
very
video.
cool.
yeah, that's so
It's from
funny.
there.
It's a very cool device. Maybe worth something.
I think I
Yeah.
can't find
It
the
might be.
back
Be
with
careful,
No
honestly.
battery cover or nothing. It's just.
But it's really interesting looking. I've never seen anything like that.
Really? I'll swap you an A for the recording.
Let me give it some
Like a
thought.
pretty good deal. Sorry, what was that?
Parasol? What did he say the blue thing was?
That big
I
blue
looked
thing on the top.
Paramecium?
peroxisome.
Yeah, peroxisome.
Oh, okay. It's like on the bottle too. Like there's actual. Yeah. Is it like they would say stuff on mine? Yeah.
Oh, I see.
We can't use it unless they register for it. I was like on customer service support, and I was like, hello? And they're like, yeah, no, they use it. And I was like, that's not a
I think he's saying like maybe the TA would have done that.
Yeah. I don't know how we're gonna do all of this. Maybe up front.
This one is making sense to me a lot, but the lecture is just kind of. I just didn't read the slides.
But it does have more structure. Does anybody have like the specific things he said yesterday that he's like, this is gonna be on the exam? This is gonna
For
be
this stuff?
No,
Oh, for that?
or
Oh,
yeah.
I don't know. I'm just gonna go over the first two chapters, I guess.
I know I read the first two.
Yeah, I didn't.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the study guide for grade space.
Like with
He said he goes right off of the study guide. That's what he said.
I love the study guide. Okay, that's good.
which is what we're looking at.
Okay.
There was one question he asked like 4 times though that I did right because he kept saying
I know
it's
he
gonna be
did.
on the
He
test.
did ask me if he was thinking a lot. And I was like,
Transcription and translation.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
that was a big one.
I like watched a video on that today.
Hello, everyone. Hello. It's 8:15, so please clean up as best you can. Put everything back. And I'll see you guys Monday. Have a nice weekend.
When I call your name, please let me know that you're here. Yassine? Yassine? Here. Viviana? Here. Gabriella? Here. Naya? Here. Nicole? Here. Christine? Here. Destiny? Here. Nahimi,
Here.
Tamia, Michelle,
Here.
Elizabeth,
Here.
Jennifer,
Here.
Kyle, Jacqueline,
Here.
Taylor,
Here.
Jasmine,
Here.
Joseph, Ashley,
Here.
Justin,
Here.
Gabrielle, Jasmine Posada, Christy,
Here.
Louis,
Here.
Arthur,
Here.
Brianna, Desiree.
Here.
Was Brianna here?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody's name I didn't call? Okay, all present and accounted for. We left off, we were just about to start to talk about mitosis. And cell division is a form of cellular reproduction. A single cell divides into two identical daughter cells. At the end of a cell's lifespan, it undergoes genetically controlled death called apoptosis. Now, the reason we don't have webbed fingers, we have webbed fingers in utero. The fetus has webbed fingers. The cells between the fingers die, genetically programmed to die, so that the fingers end at the knuckles. So if it wasn't for apoptosis, you would all have webbed fingers, which golden retrievers have webbed paws. I don't know if you know that. They're water dogs. They swim. They have webbed paws. I have a golden retriever. Anybody else have a golden retriever? A lab? Okay. Everybody here? Anybody here have a dog? Raise your hand if you have a dog. Wow. A lot of dog owners. Wow. Small dogs? Raise your hand. Small dog. Okay. Big dog? Okay. Interphase is the non-dividing period where the cell spends the majority of its life, and there are three phases. GO is actually a non-dividing cell. It doesn't undergo division at all. So brain cells don't divide, muscle cells don't divide, nerves don't divide. So they are stuck in GO. But interphase, in cells that divide, you start with G1, go to S, and then G2 phases. The S phase is where DNA is duplicated. So interphase, the G1 is the first phase. The cell functions plus growth and duplication of the organelles and protein synthesis. So as I mentioned, the S phase is DNA replication and synthesis of histones. You recall histones are proteins in which the double helix wraps around. G2 is protein synthesis. Once DNA replication is ended, there's a brief 2 to 5 hour phase devoted to last-minute protein synthesis and the completion of centriole replication. Do you guys remember what a centriole is? Anybody remember a centriole?
Is it those little black things that are in the cytoplasm of the cell?
They're in the cytoplasm and they're at right angles to each other. And they produce the mitotic spindle, the little spider webs that pull the chromosomes apart. So these are the phases of division, cell division, mitosis: prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. Here's the centrioles in the centrosome. Here's the nucleus. In interphase, you can't see the chromosomes. They're like thin strands of spaghetti, microscopic strands of spaghetti that are not visible. In prophase, they start to, well, before we go into that, let's go into DNA replication. There's a protein that unwinds the DNA strands. Helicase is the name of the protein. DNA polymerase promotes bonding between nitrogenous bases of the DNA strand and complementary DNA nucleotides dissolved in the nucleoplasm. And it links the nucleotides by covalent bonds. So here is DNA polymerase. It slides down, here helicase unwinds the double helix. DNA polymerase winds down and it adds nitrogenous bases and nucleotides into a growing helical structure that will form the new helix. 2 strands will be formed. 2 double helixes will be formed as a result of DNA polymerase. And you can see the nucleotides being added with covalent bonds added to each strand of DNA. So you end up with 2 identical strands of DNA. Now, this is strange because it's hard to visualize what we're talking about. This is a chromosome, and this is identical, the sister chromatid. There's 2 sister chromatids that are joined together at the centromere. These will separate during mitosis. They'll be pulled by the mitotic spindle to both daughter cells. So this DNA duplication produces these sister chromatids. Mitosis is duplication of the chromosomes in the nucleus and their separation into 2 identical sets. It's a continuous process. The phases I mentioned earlier, prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. And the last phase is actually not one of the phases, it's cytokinesis, where the cytoplasm divides in half and produces daughter cells.
Does that happen in telophase or does interphase?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Cytokinesis, it happens in the telophase or in interphase?
In telophase.
In telophase.
It's the last phase of telophase. You'll see that in a minute. So early prophase, the centrioles go on opposite sides of the cell, and the nucleus disappears. We don't know where it goes. It's a mystery. Why does the nucleus disappear? Where does it go to, and how does it reappear? It's a mystery. Nobody knows the answer to that. So the chromosomes condense, the chromatin condenses into chromosomes with 2 sister chromatids. That's in late prophase. You can see the micrograph here. Then they line up at the center of the chromosomes at the metaphase plate at the equator of the cell, and you can see that on this micrograph. In anaphase, the sister chromatids are pulled apart, and you can see that in this micrograph as well. In telophase, you have the nucleuses start to reform. The chromosomes start to disappear and become chromatin again. Cytokinesis occurs and separates the cells. And this is called the cleavage furrow, this invagination between the 2 daughter cells, the cleavage furrow. Mitotic rate is the rate of cell division. The slower mitotic rate means longer life. Cell division requires ATP. I'm not sure how ATP is involved in cell division. I'm not clear about that. I have to look it up. I'll let you know next class. I'm at a loss. So if I don't know it, I won't test you on it. That's the good news. Muscle cells and neurons rarely divide. Exposed cells like skin and digestive tract live only days or hours, and they're replenished by stem cells. Cell division. Normally, cell division balances cell loss. Cell division can be stimulated by internal factors such as M-phase promoting factor, MPF, and extracellular chemical factors called growth factors. Cell division can be inhibited by repressor genes. Faulty repressor genes cause cancers. Worn out telomeres, terminal DNA segments, cause aging and death of the cell, the apoptosis that we mentioned earlier. Tumor is a neoplasm. It's a mass produced by abnormal cell growth and division. A benign tumor is contained and doesn't spread. It's not life-threatening unless it's large. Malignant tumors spread to surrounding tissues. They invade other tissues. That process is called metastasis. So cancer results from abnormal proliferation of cells. It's caused by mutations in genes involved in cell growth. The modified genes are called oncogenes. Mutagens are agents that cause mutations. Carcinogens, including many mutagens, are cancer-causing agents. Metastasis is the spread of cancer to other areas. It begins with invasion of the tissues surrounding the tumor. Did you guys study skin yet?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Do you remember melanin?
We didn't study, we didn't do that.
Okay. That's the skin pigment. Why do you need skin pigment? Why aren't we just completely white, albinos? What purpose is there to skin pigment? I'll give you a hint. Dark-skinned individuals have less skin cancer than fair-skinned individuals.
Oh, so
It's like UV rays?
Yeah, it protects against UV rays. The ultraviolet rays cause mutations in the DNA. The cells that grow, they start off the germinal layer, and it grows to the surface, and the cells get flatter and flatter until they die and flake off. But the DNA, the division occurs at the germinal layer. And at that layer, it's very susceptible. Mitosis is very susceptible to mutations during the DNA duplication or replication. It's very sensitive. So the melanin acts as an umbrella that screens the nucleus from ultraviolet rays. So this is an abnormal cell. It starts to grow out of control, and it doesn't respect its neighbors. It just continues to grow. It's like a builder that keeps building houses closer and closer together without respect for their boundaries. And the cell can spread in the bloodstream or the lymphatic system, or it can invade tissues that are adjacent to it. And they come out of the blood and spread to a distant area. Now, prostate cancer and breast cancer are known to spread to bone, brain, and liver. Prostate cancer and breast cancer spread to bone, liver, and brain. All cells contain the same chromosomes and genes, which begs the question, why aren't we made up of the same cells if we have all the cells have the same chromosomes? So why do some cells become liver cells and some become fat cells and some become neurons? It's the process of cellular differentiation by turning off genes that are not needed by that cell. So you're turning off the cells that would make a liver cell, and it allows the cell to become a neuron, a nerve cell. Or it turns off the genes that would make it a neuron and allow it to become a muscle cell. So we're going to go to chapter 4, the tissue level of organization. This is where it starts to get more interesting now. We did chemistry, we got that out of the way. And we got the cell out of the way. So this becomes more interesting now as we go into tissues and organs and organ systems.
For our exam Monday, this chapter is not on it, right?
That's correct, it's not on it. So you can ignore everything I'm saying. Except it's going to be on the next one. So tissues, we talked about what tissues are. They're collections of specialized cells that perform specific functions. They resemble each other, they have a common embryologic origin, or they have a similar function. So they resemble each other, have a similar function, or have a common embryologic origin. Tissues in combination form organs such as the heart or the liver. Histology is the study of tissues. There's 4 types of tissue: epithelial, connective, muscle, and nervous tissue. Epithelial tissue covers exposed surfaces. It lines internal passageways and forms glands. Connective tissue fills internal spaces, supports other tissues, transports materials, and stores energy. Now, you don't normally think of a connective tissue storing energy, but fat cells do that. They store energy. Transporting materials, blood transports oxygen and carbon dioxide. Connective tissue supports other tissues, for example, collagen and tendons and ligaments. It fills internal spaces, fascia, and capsules. Muscle tissue is specialized for contraction, and there's 3 types of muscle: skeletal muscle, heart muscle, and smooth muscle. Nervous tissue carries electrical signals from one part of the body to another. So you have cells combined to form tissues: epithelial tissue, connective tissue, muscle tissue, and nervous tissue. These 4 tissues combine to form organs, which interact to form organ systems. Epithelial tissue includes epithelia and glands. Epithelia, the singular, is epithelium. It's layers of cells covering internal or external surfaces. The thing to remember about epithelia is that the cells are packed together like sardines. They're very close to each other, as opposed to connective tissue where the cells are far apart from each other. Like bone cells are pretty far apart from other bone cells. Cartilage cells are pretty far apart from each other. Glands are made up of epithelial tissue, and glands produce fluid secretions. Now, there's 2 types of glands: exocrine glands and endocrine glands. Can anyone tell me the difference between an exocrine gland and an endocrine gland?
Exits the body.
Right, it secretes into a duct. What about endocrine?
It stays in the body.
Stays in the body, goes into the blood. So endocrine goes into the blood, exocrine goes out a duct. The duct can be the skin, or it can be an internal organ like the intestines, the stomach. Functions of epithelial tissue provide physical protection like skin, control permeability, provide sensation, and produce specialized secretions like sweat. Characteristics of epithelia: they have polarity, they have an apical and basal surface. They have cellularity, they have cell junctions, they have attachment to the basement membrane. They're avascular, they don't have blood vessels. And they have a high rate of mitosis, so they regenerate. Now, when I say they're avascular, what is the outer layer of skin called? Epidermis. Is there blood vessels in epidermis? No. So you notice if you get a paper cut, you don't bleed. It hurts like hell. How many people have had paper cuts? Just about everybody has had a paper cut. I hate paper cuts. I guess it's worse if you bleed. And you put a Band-Aid and Neosporin on. Change the Band-Aid every day. But so epithelial tissue, the epidermis is an epithelial tissue. It doesn't bleed. The dermis is connective tissue, and it has blood vessels in the dermis. When you have a bruise, you break blood vessels in the dermis. That's why you get a bruise, black and blue. Specialization of epithelial cells, they move fluid over the epithelium for protection, move fluids through the epithelium, permeability, and produce secretions for protection and messaging. Polarity, the apical surface has some characteristics. One of the characteristics is microvilli, which increases surface area for absorption or secretion. Cilia is another feature that is on some epithelium, and it moves fluids across the surface. There's a basolateral surface and an apical surface. Think of the apical surface as the top surface, and the basolateral surface is the bottom layer. So this is a cell here, an epithelial cell. Notice it has a nucleus, it has rough endoplasmic reticulum, it has mitochondria, it has Golgi apparatus, lysosomes, and you'll notice this one has cilia, which will beat and move mucus or an egg in the fallopian tubes or mucus in the trachea and bronchi. These are microvilli, little fingers, that increase surface area. Notice that these cells are attached to the basement membrane. Basement membrane, just as it sounds, is the basement of the cell. Notice the cells are connected to each other. Looks like little zippers. Those are called desmosomes. These are tight junctions. We'll get into the types of connections between cells in just a moment. Integrity of the epithelia is maintained by intracellular connections and attachment to the basement membrane. Epithelial maintenance and repair also add to the integrity of the cell. So intercellular connections support and communication. Cell adhesion molecules are transmembrane proteins. Proteoglycans act as intercellular cement. They contain glycosaminoglycans and hyaluronic acid. Now, you may have heard of hyaluronic acid in some skin creams. Have you heard of that, hyaluronic acid? Yes. You hear it advertised. Cell junctions form bonds with other extracellular cells or other cells and extracellular material. There's three types of cell junctions: gap junctions, tight junctions, and desmosomes. Gap junctions allow rapid communication from one cell to the next. The cells are held together by interlocking transmembrane proteins called connexons. They allow small molecules and ions to pass, and they coordinate contractions in heart muscle. Now, when your ventricles contract in your heart, it does so almost simultaneously. The whole muscle contracts, and there's a reason for that. It's because of gap junctions. Let me show you what a gap junction looks like. This is a gap junction. These are the connexons, the proteins. There's a channel between the cells which allows sodium to go from one cell to the next, carrying an electrical impulse. So it's very rapid communication between one cell and the next, almost instantaneous or simultaneous because of the gap junctions. Tight junctions exist between two plasma membranes. There's an adhesion belt that attaches to the terminal web. It prevents the passage of water and solutes. It keeps enzymes, acids, and wastes in the lumen of the digestive tract. Let's look at what tight junctions look like. Just like the name sounds, tight junctions are here. They squeeze together the plasma membrane, and they have an adhesion belt here. This will prevent acid in the stomach from leaking into the cells. Desmosomes cell adhesion molecules and proteoglycans link opposing plasma membranes. They act like Velcro. Spot desmosomes tie cells together and allow bending and twisting. Hemidesmosomes attach the cells to the basement membrane. So this is a desmosome. This is a hemidesmosome. The hemidesmosome attaches to the basement membrane, to the cell. The desmosomes, the spot desmosomes, attach the cells together. And these are the gap junctions that I was telling you about with the channels. These are the tight junctions and the adhesion belt. This is the spot desmosome. Looks like a zipper, doesn't it? Looks like a zipper. And these are intermediate filaments that anchor the desmosome, the spot desmosome. And these are cell adhesion molecules. They're proteins that lock the two cells together in an embrace. Hemidesmosomes attach, they're like desmosomes, but they attach the cell to the basement membrane. Epithelial maintenance and repair. Epithelial cells are replaced by continual division of stem cells, and the stem cells are located near the basement membrane. Classification of epithelia is based on shape and based on layers. Shape, squamous is thin and flat, like pavers. Cuboidal is square-shaped or round. Columnar is tall, slender rectangles. Based on layers, simple epithelium is a single layer of cells. Stratified epithelium is several layers of cells. Now think of stratified as strata. Archaeologists will look at layers in the dirt and in the rocks. They look at strata. So stratified means layers. So it's multiple layers stratified. Simple is one layer. So this is simple squamous epithelium. This is stratified squamous epithelium. Notice the cells look like they're cuboidal in the basal layer, but they're flat, they're squamous at the surface. They're named according to their apical surface. The apical cells is what you named the tissue. So this is stratified because it has multiple layers. The apical layer is squamous, so it's called stratified squamous epithelium. This is simple cuboidal. This is stratified cuboidal, cube-shaped cells, one on top of the other. This is simple columnar, one column with a nucleus in the column. These could be cilia or microvilli, it's hard to tell. Could be either one. This is stratified columnar epithelium. Now it's named for the surface layer, the apical layer, is columnar, so it's stratified columnar, which is pretty rare in the body.
So the difference between cuboidal and the squamous is that the cuboidals are sort of stacked on top of each other in a line?
No, the squamous are flat. Stratified squamous is multiple cells, that the top layer is flat. Cuboidal is shaped like a cube. Simple cuboidal is one cube next to another. Stratified cuboidal is one cube on top of the other.
So you would never see on a cuboidal that line of stratified
Right.
at the top.
No,
it would
you
just
won't.
be the cube.
It's named according to the apical layer.
Okay.
And it's just based off the apical layer?
The apical layer, yeah.
Well, okay, so that's how the structure of that is what originated.
Right.
Okay.
The stratified squamous is named according to the apical layer, which is squamous. It's a flat cell. But it looks like the bottom row is cuboidal, but it's not named for the bottom row.
Yeah, that makes things a lot easier because we were kind of all trying to figure out like what looks like what and what the reason is, and
Right.
he was like, oh yeah, like it just you'll just figure it out.
He's like, you'll know it.
This
You'll
is
know it.
really helpful to know.
You'll know it when you see it, right?
Yeah, you'll know when
But,
you
like,
see it
you know
exactly. Yeah.
Famous last words, the Indians will never attack.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Squamous epithelia, there's simple squamous epithelia, which are involved in absorption and diffusion. Mesothelium lines body cavities. And you may have heard of commercials advertising mesothelioma. Get your mesothelioma book. Call our lawyers now, and we'll help you win your case. It's small consolation because you're probably dying from mesothelioma. It's a cancer of the mesothelium. The endothelium forms the inner lining of the heart and blood vessels. Stratified squamous epithelia protects against mechanical stresses, and keratin adds strength and water resistance. Did you guys study keratin when you studied skin? So it makes skin somewhat water resistant. Not waterproof, water resistant. Now I have a raincoat. I left it with my wife outside. She drove me here tonight because I had a colonoscopy today. And I'm not allowed to drive. So she drove me here. She's reading the papers outside waiting for me. So, what was the point? Oh, water. Going back to what I was saying, I have to rein it in. Water resistant, not waterproof. My raincoat is water resistant. If enough rain falls on it, it'll get waterlogged. So it's water resistant but not waterproof. So the way you would know that is because if you keep your hands in water too long, what happens?
Wrinkles.
It prunes up your fingers, right? So this is simple squamous epithelium. It's one layer thick. Looks like pavers. And places where you would find this would be in the alveoli of the lungs. You would find it in the peritoneum, the pleural cavities, the pericardial cavities. Stratified squamous, places where you would find it is on the skin, the lining of the mouth, the throat, the esophagus or food pipe, the rectum, anus, and the vagina. Cuboidal epithelia, simple cuboidal epithelium, are involved in secretion and absorption. Glands and portions of the kidney tubules are simple cuboidal epithelium. Stratified cuboidal epithelium is relatively rare. Ducts of sweat glands and mammary glands can have stratified cuboidal epithelium. So this is a kidney here, the ureter. This is a nephron, the filtering part of the kidney. And the tubules that form this nephron, these tubes that you see here, are simple cuboidal. Looks like cubes, right? And this is a light micrograph showing these tubules. One layer thick, simple cuboidal. Stratified cuboidal, you would find it in sweat glands. You see cuboidal cells one on top of the other. And you can see that in the light micrograph as well. Transitional epithelia are interesting. They allow the bladder to stretch. And the cells change as a result of the stretching process. So here is an empty bladder. This is a full bladder. In the empty bladder, notice the apical cells are dome-shaped. In the full bladder, the apical cells are flat. So that's why they call it transitional epithelium. Did you guys learn transitional epithelium?
Yeah.
Did you know why they called it transitional? You know. Columnar epithelium, simple columnar epithelium, are involved in absorption and secretion. They're found in the stomach, the small intestine, and large intestine. Pseudostratified columnar epithelia typically have cilia. They're found in the nasal cavity, the trachea, the windpipe, the trachea, and the bronchi, the tubes that go into the lungs. Now, what does pseudo mean?
You said we weren't going to do that one.
False.
Fake. False. It appears stratified, but it really isn't stratified. It looks like multiple layers, but it's actually one layer with the nuclei at different heights. All the cells touch the basement membrane. All the cells touch the basement membrane, but they don't all reach the surface. Some cells reach halfway up or a quarter of the way up, but they all touch the basement membrane. Stratified columnar epithelium is also rare, provides protection in the pharynx, the anus, and the urethra, the tube that drains the bladders, the urethra. So simple columnar epithelium is shown here with microvilli. This might be the intestinal lining. This is a light micrograph showing the microvilli. And notice it has one nucleus, and the nucleus is in the bottom half of the cell, and it's column-shaped, simple columnar. Stratified, pseudostratified columnar looks like multiple layers, but it really isn't. All the cells touch the basement membrane, but they don't all make it to the surface. And these are cilia that you see here. You can see them. These cilia will beat, and there's something called a mucus escalator in the lungs that the cilia beat and take mucus from the lungs and put it into your throat so you can swallow the mucus. What would be the purpose of the mucus? What's that?
To basically, is it to lubricate your throat?
Lubricate the throat? Possibly, yes, possibly. What else?
Before, I think we talked about like dust part, like if
Yes.
there's like any dust or anything that comes in, it like
Traps
traps it.
It traps dust
Before it
and
gets through.
smoke and pollen, and you're able to bring it up. Now, people who smoke heavily, let's say a 2-pack-a-day smoker, the cilia go on strike. They say, you know what? There's just too much tar. I'm quitting. Forget about it. And when the person sleeps, they're not smoking anymore. The cilia start to wake up, and they start beating and moving tar up. So when a smoker wakes up in the morning, they have smoker's cough. They have to cough up the mucus and the tar. But while they're sleeping, they're not coughing. When they wake up, they're coughing. The cilia start to wake up. Stratified columnar epithelium is rare. It provides protection. And you can see this is a better view. If you consider this the apical layer, you can see it's columnar. Glandular epithelia. Glands are collections of epithelial cells that produce secretions. We talked about endocrine glands releasing hormones into the bloodstream. They don't have ducts. Exocrine glands produce exocrine secretions, and they discharge secretions through ducts onto epithelial surfaces. So an example of an exocrine gland would be the pancreas. The pancreas makes bicarbonate to neutralize stomach acid, and it makes enzymes to help break down food. And they go into the pancreatic duct. The endocrine part of the pancreas makes insulin and glucagon. Insulin, as you know, lowers blood sugar. So the pancreas is both an endocrine gland and an exocrine gland. Usually glands are one or the other. Usually they're either endocrine or exocrine, but not both. Glands can be unicellular or multicellular. Unicellular glands, goblet cells, look like upside-down wine glasses. And they make mucus. They make mucin. When mucin combines with water, it makes mucus. So mucin is the protein. When combined with water, it makes mucus, but it's shaped like an upside-down wine glass. And it's a single cell that makes mucus. Now, you can have cells that are multicellular, and I won't bore you with the different types of multicellular glands. These are some of the pictures of the glands. I couldn't identify these. if you ask me to identify these types of glands. Compound tubular, compound alveolar, acinar, compound tubular alveolar. Who cares? Methods of secretion: merocrine, apocrine, and holocrine secretion. Let's look at each of them. Merocrine secretion is released by secretory vesicles by exocytosis. An example is the merocrine sweat glands. Did you guys cover sweat glands when you covered skin?
We identified them. We didn't really
You identified them on models, right? Yeah. Apocrine secretion is released by shedding cytoplasm. For example, the mammary glands, when they make milk, part of the cell is shed, the cytoplasm is shed to make milk. Half the cell will shed the cytoplasm. In holocrine secretion, the cells burst and kill the gland cells, and the gland cells are replaced by stem cells. An example is the sebaceous glands. Did you guys study sebaceous glands?
Same thing.
Models, right? They make oil. Your skin, if you don't wash your skin for a couple of days, your skin becomes very oily because of sebaceous glands. If you don't wash your hair for a week, it becomes oily because of sebaceous glands on the hair follicles. So this is merocrine secretion. Exocytosis, remember we said it's like sneezing, where vesicles, secretory vesicles, are released, and the contents, they burst like a bubble, they burst and they release their contents. Salivary glands are merocrine secreting glands. Apocrine secretion, the part of the cell breaks down, the cytoplasm is shed, and the mammary gland is an example of the apocrine secretion. Holocrine secretion, again, sebaceous glands, the cells actually rupture completely and die. And the new cells, notice what's happening down here. What's happening down here? Mitosis, right? New cells are being made at the basal layer that replaces the cells that die up above, and they release their oil. The cells are full of oil. Types of secretions produced by exocrine glands. There's serous glands, which produce watery secretions, mucus glands, which secrete mucins, mixed exocrine glands secrete both serous and mucus. Who cares? Components of connective tissues. We'll switch gears now from talking about epithelial tissue to connective tissue. Connective tissue have specialized cells, extracellular protein fibers like collagen, and they have a fluid called ground substance. Matrix consists of extracellular components of connective tissue, the fibers and the ground substance. The majority of the tissue volume is made up of matrix. In other words, the ground substance, which is fluid, and the fibers, which often are collagen. So most of the tissue volume is made up of matrix, and the cells are far apart from each other, which I mentioned earlier is typical of connective tissue. Functions of connective tissue: it establishes a structural framework for the body, like the bones, transports fluids and dissolved materials like blood, protect delicate organs like capsules around organs, supporting, surrounding, and interconnecting other types of tissues like tendons and ligaments, storing energy reserves, especially triglycerides, in fat, defending the body from invading microorganisms such as white blood cells that fight infections. Categories of connective tissue: connective tissue proper, connect and protect; fluid connective tissue, which is blood and lymph, transports; supporting connective tissue, which adds structural strength. Connective tissue proper, you have loose connective tissue and dense connective tissue. In loose connective tissue, you have more ground substance and fewer fibers. Examples are fat or adipose tissue. Dense connective tissue has more fibers and less ground substance. Examples are tendons and ligaments. Cells of the connective tissue proper, let's go through some of the cells. Fibroblasts are the most abundant cell type. They're found in all types of connective tissue proper. They secrete proteins and hyaluronic acid, the cellular cement. Fibrocytes are the second most abundant cell type. They maintain connective tissue fibers. So where do they get the word fibroblasts and fibrocytes? Why are they called that? What do they make? Fibers, right. That was easy, right? Adipocytes are fat cells. Each cell stores a single large fat droplet. Mesenchymal cells are stem cells that are in the embryo and also respond to injury or infection. They differentiate into fibroblasts, macrophages. All connective tissue is derived from mesenchymal cells. Melanocytes synthesize and store the brown pigment melanin. By the way, albinos are missing melanin, and as a result, their skin is very white, their hair is white, their eye color is a very unusual color. Macrophages are large phagocytic cells in the immune system. What does that mean, phagocytic? It swallows things, right? It engulfs pathogens and damaged cells. Fixed macrophages stay in a tissue. Free macrophages migrate around. Mast cells stimulate inflammation after injury or infection. They release histamine and heparin. Now, you know what an antihistamine is, right? It's for allergies. It reduces runny nose, stuffy nose. Histamine causes those things. It causes vasodilation, swelling of the tissues, and leaky capillaries that cause a runny nose. So an antihistamine blocks mast cells from releasing histamine. Basophils are white blood cells that also contain histamine and heparin. Heparin is an anti-clotting agent. Lymphocytes migrate throughout the body. They may develop into plasma cells, which produce antibodies. You may have heard of antibodies when we talk about COVID and other diseases like the flu. You develop antibodies with the vaccine. That wasn't dark enough to fall asleep. It wasn't long enough to fall asleep. Microphages are phagocytic blood cells, neutrophils and eosinophils. They're attracted to signals from macrophages and mast cells. Connective tissue fibers, there's three types of fibers: collagen fibers, reticular fibers, and elastic fibers. Collagen fibers are the most common fibers in connective tissue proper. 25% of your body's protein is made up of collagen. 25% of the body's protein is made up of collagen. It's long, straight, and unbranched. Now, collagen, I mentioned to you in the last lecture, is stronger than steel, pound for pound. It's strong and very flexible. It resists force in one direction. It's abundant in tendons and ligaments. Reticular fibers form a scaffolding. It's strong and flexible, and it resists forces in many directions. It stabilizes functional cells called parenchyma, and examples of reticular fibers are the sheaths around organs. Elastic fibers contain elastin, which is a type of protein. It's branched and wavy, and it returns to its original length after stretching. Example of elastic fibers are the elastic ligaments of the vertebra, but a better example is, have you ever checked your pulse? When you check your pulse, you're feeling the blood vessel, the artery, expand and contract. The reason it expands and contracts is because of the elastic fibers in the artery wall. So this is the hodgepodge of the different types of cells that you would see in connective tissue proper. You have plasma cells, blood cells, fat cells, lymphocytes, type of white blood cell, fibroblasts that make fibers, free macrophages, mast cells, elastic fibers, collagen fibers. Ground substance is clear, and connective tissue proper is clear, colorless, and viscous. It fills spaces between cells and slows pathogen movement. Loose connective tissue is packing materials. It fills spaces between organs, cushions cells, and support epithelia. Embryonic connective tissue is not found in adults. Mesenchyme is embryonic connective tissue. It's the first connective tissue in embryos. Mucous connective tissue is loose embryonic connective tissue found in the umbilical cord. So this is mesenchyme, this stem cell that is found in the embryo. It's also found in adults, but it's more prevalent in the embryo. And this is Wharton's jelly mucous connective tissue found from the umbilical cord. Types of loose connective tissue in adults: areolar tissue, adipose tissue, and reticular tissue. Areolar tissue has an open framework with elastic fibers. It holds capillary beds, for example, under the skin, the subcutaneous layer. The thing about areolar tissue is that there's a lot of empty space between the cells. And it looks like spaghetti and meatballs. You see how it looks like spaghetti and meatballs? It looks like the spaghetti strands are far apart from each other, and the meatballs are far apart from each other as well. And the meatballs are fibrocytes, fibroblasts, and macrophages. So there's seemingly a lot of empty space in areolar tissue, and this is a light micrograph. So it actually looks like what it's supposed to look like. Did you guys go over areolar tissue in the lab? No. Okay. Adipose tissue, you probably went over, contains many adipocytes, fat cells. Adipocytes in adults do not divide. They expand to store fat and shrink as fats are released. So when you gain weight, you don't gain a number of fat cells. Your fat cells become fatter. When you lose weight, your fat cells become skinnier. You don't actually gain numbers of fat cells. And mesenchymal cells will divide and differentiate to produce more fat cells when the fat cells are gone, when more storage is needed. They can be removed, adipose tissue can be removed temporarily via liposuction in cosmetic surgery. Now, the thing about liposuction is that it's temporary because the mesenchyme divides and differentiates into more fat cells. So whatever you take off is going to come back. It's just a matter of time. White fat is the most common. It stores fat and absorbs shock. It slows heat loss, acts as an insulator. Brown fat is found in babies and young children. The reason it's brown is because it has more blood vessels. Adipocytes have many mitochondria, and the breakdown of lipids releases energy and warms the body. So baby fat is brown fat. It keeps the babies warm. So this is adipose tissue. It looks like soap bubbles under the microscope. And the fat droplets take up most of the cell, and the nucleus is pushed off to the side. So most of the cell is made up of fat, the adipose cells. By the way, half your body's fat is in the subcutaneous region, underneath the skin. Half your body's fat is found underneath the skin. Reticular tissue provides support. Reticular fibers form a complex three-dimensional stroma, and they support the functional cells of organs. They form a scaffolding as such. They're found in the liver, the kidney, the spleen, lymph nodes, and bone marrow. So you see how it looks like scaffolding. It actually looks like grapevines, looks like grapes on a vine. And places where you would find this type of tissue are the liver, the spleen, and other organ lymph nodes. Dense connective tissue is also called collagenous tissue, contains many collagen fibers. There's three types of dense connective tissue: dense regular, dense irregular, and elastic dense connective tissue. Dense regular connective tissue is tightly packed, parallel collagen fibers. Examples are tendons that attach muscles to bone, ligaments that connect one bone to another and stabilize organs, and aponeuroses, which are tendinous sheaths that attach a broad, flat muscle to another structure. So this is dense, regular connective tissue. Notice how it's wavy in its appearance, and it goes in one direction, providing its strength in one direction, like a tendon or a ligament. This is a light microscope view of dense, regular connective tissue. Dense, irregular connective tissue provides strength to the dermis. It provides sheaths around cartilage and bones, and it forms capsules around some organs like the liver, the kidneys, and the spleen. The thing about dense, irregular connective tissue is that the collagen fibers run in all random directions. They don't run in one direction. They run in all different directions to give it strength from multiple directions. So this is dense, irregular connective tissue. This is a light micrograph. Notice how the collagen fibers run in all different directions, almost appearing random. Elastic tissue is made up of elastic fibers. For example, the elastic ligaments of the spinal vertebra. And more easy to understand are the arteries, the elastic tissue in arteries that expand and contract with your pulse. So this is an elastic ligament, and you can see the wavy fibers. They look like dense, regular connective tissue, except instead of being collagen, it's elastic fibers. They stain differently. Connective tissue provides strength and stability. They maintain position of internal organs, and they provide routes for blood vessels, lymphatic vessels, and nerves. Fascia is connective tissue layers and wrappings that support and surround organs. Fluid connective tissue includes blood and lymph. Blood contains a watery matrix called plasma. It contains cells and cell fragments, collectively known as foreign elements. Red blood cells are known as erythrocytes. White blood cells are known as leukocytes, and platelets are involved in the clotting process. So these are red blood cells. They lack a nucleus, and the reason they're red is because of hemoglobin. Why is a red blood cell red? I already mentioned that hemoglobin gives it its color. But why is hemoglobin red? What color is rusted iron?
Red.
Red-orange, right? So in the hemoglobin, there's an iron molecule at the center of the hemoglobin. And when it takes on oxygen, it turns red. So it's oxidized and it turns red. That's why blood is red. Rusted iron. White blood cells, there's different types of white blood cells. I won't bore you with that. Platelets are also called thrombocytes. They're involved in clotting process. They group together, they huddle together, and they block exits where a blood vessel is ruptured. Lymph is a type of fluid that enters lymphatic vessels. It's monitored by the immune system, such as lymph nodes and spleen. And the lymph fluid is returned to the veins near the heart. It takes extra fluid that, remember I told you that arteries will leak fluid on the capillary, and then the fluid goes back in because of osmotic pressure, because of the plasma proteins. The water is drawn back in. But not all of the water goes in. Some of the water gets collected by the lymphatic vessels. Let's take a 10-minute break, and we'll meet back here at 10 up. So supportive connective tissue includes cartilage and bone. Cartilage acts as a shock absorber and protection. The matrix is a firm gel, and it contains the polysaccharide derivatives called chondroitin sulfate. Now, some people take glucosamine chondroitin. Has anybody ever heard of glucosamine chondroitin? It's a supplement that's used for arthritis, osteoarthritis. And it's believed that it helps restore some of the cartilage that's been lost in osteoarthritis. Osteoarthritis is a disease where wear and tear on the cartilage grinds away the cartilage from being overweight or just many years of abuse on the joints causes a wearing away of the cartilage, which is called osteoarthritis. So they take this supplement to restore the chondroitin, which is possibly missing. Now, there's some studies that say it works, other studies say it doesn't work. Like all supplements, you have to be a believer in the supplement, and there's no solid evidence that it is definitely helpful. The cells in the matrix are called chondrocytes, and they're in chambers called lacunae. Now, chondroblasts are immature cartilage cells. Chondrocytes are mature cartilage cells. Now, lacunae are also, lacunae means little lake. So lacunae is also the place where bone cells live. Bone cells live in lacunae as well as cartilage cells. Cartilage is avascular. It doesn't have blood vessels, whereas bone is very vascular. Which takes longer to heal, a broken bone or torn cartilage? Cartilage. Why?
Because it has less vessels in it?
It has no blood vessels in it, right? So it has to diffuse from the fluid, the synovial fluid, the nutrients to heal it. How long does it take for a broken bone to mend? How many weeks? 6 to 8 weeks, right? How long does it take for cartilage to repair? 3 to 6 months, sometimes a year, sometimes never. Sometimes you need surgery to repair it. Perichondrium is the outer layer that surrounds cartilage. There's 3 different types of cartilage: hyaline cartilage, elastic cartilage, and fibrocartilage. Hyaline cartilage makes up your nose, your ribs, and the cartilage between the joints, your knee joint, your hip joint, your finger joints. Elastic cartilage makes up your ears, and it's very elastic. It bends. When you flip your ears, they bend back. Fibrocartilage is found in the pubic symphysis between the 2 pubic bones and the intervertebral discs. Who's heard of intervertebral discs? Who's heard of herniated discs? Raise your hand. Okay. So the discs are collagen between the vertebrae, between the backbones. They act as a cushioning. And they also allow for bending. They allow for bending, and they allow for shock absorption. So fibrocartilage is found in the intervertebral discs. So hyaline cartilage is the most common type of cartilage. It's tough and somewhat flexible. It reduces friction between bones. It's found in synovial joints that have fluid in them, the tips of the ribs, the sternum, and the trachea. The sternum is the breastbone, The trachea is the windpipe. Elastic cartilage is supported but bends easily. It's found in the external ear and the epiglottis. What is the epiglottis?
Isn't that little flap of skin over your something, the trachea?
Yeah, over the larynx, over the voice box. It's a little flap of cartilage that closes to keep you from swallowing food and liquid down the wrong pipe. If that's ever happened to you, gone down the wrong pipe, you end up coughing to get the stuff out. Fibrocartilage is very durable and tough. It limits movement, prevents bone-to-bone contact. It's found around joints between the pubic bones and between the spinal vertebra. Now, when I say found around joints, you might have heard of the condition called torn meniscus. Has anybody ever heard of a torn meniscus? Mm-hmm. Meniscus is made up of fibrocartilage. It's in the knee joint. It's a bowl-shaped cartilage that takes the weight of the femur, the leg bone, the thigh bone, and distributes it evenly over the tibia, the larger bones of the leg. So this is hyaline cartilage. It looks like stained glass with little holes in it, like Swiss cheese. Bless you. These are the chondrocytes in the lacunae, the little lakes. This is a light micrograph of cartilage. Did you guys look at cartilage under the microscope?
Yeah.
You did, right. Okay. So you probably saw hyaline cartilage. This is elastic cartilage. It stains dark because of elastic fibers. And this is fibrocartilage. The reason it's called fibrocartilage is because it has a lot of fibers of collagen. Now, all cartilage has collagen in it, but fibrocartilage has the most amount of collagen. We're going to skip cartilage growth because it bores me to tears. We're going to go to bones. Bones, osseous tissue for weight support. It's calcified. It's made rigid by calcium salts. It resists shattering because of flexible collagen fibers. Now, I don't know if I told you this or not, but bone is stronger than concrete, pound for pound. Bone is stronger than concrete, pound for pound. Now, what makes bone so strong is the calcified bone material and the collagen fibers inside the bone. Have you ever seen concrete with steel bars in it? What's the purpose of the steel bars? Support, gives it strength. It reinforces the concrete. The same thing happens with collagen. It reinforces the bone, the calcium carbonate, calcium phosphate, and what's the combination of those two is called hydroxyapatite. You don't need to know that. Just fun fact that you can tell people at cocktail parties. Osteocytes are bone cells. They lie in lacunae. They are arranged around central canals within the matrix. They have small channels called canaliculi, which literally means small channels in Latin. They allow for exchange of materials with the blood. The layer surrounding the bone is called periosteum. This is compact bone. What does this look like? Tree trunks, right? Like a hollow tree trunk. This is the central canal where blood vessels are found. These are the lacunae where the osteocytes are found. It looks like the cartilage, the lacunae of the cartilage. These lines that you see here are the canaliculi. And the rings, the tree rings, are called concentric lamellae. You don't need to know that. But here's the central canal with the blood vessels. Here is the osteocytes in the lacunae. And the matrix is made up of calcified bone with canaliculi. You can see the canaliculi. This is the periosteum that surrounds bone. Tissue membranes are physical barriers that line or cover body surfaces. They consist of an epithelium supported by connective tissue. Let me put my clock on. There's 4 types of tissue membranes: mucous membranes, serous membranes, cutaneous membranes, and synovial membranes. What do you think mucous membranes are? They have mucus on them. Serous membranes are found in the membrane surrounding the lungs and the heart and the peritoneal cavity. What do you think cutaneous membrane is? Skin, right, skin. Synovial membrane surrounds joints that have synovial fluid. So mucous membranes line passageways that have external connections in digestive, respiratory, urinary, and reproductive tracts. The epithelial surfaces must be moist to reduce friction, slippery when wet. Remember that term, slippery when wet. To facilitate absorption or secretion. And lamina propria is the areolar tissue in mucous membranes. So in a mucous membrane, you have a layer of epithelia on top, and you have areolar connective tissue below it. The connective tissue is below, just like in skin. You have the epidermis, which is made up of epithelial cells, and you have the dermis, which is made up of connective tissue. So this is a mucous membrane, and you see cilia here on these. What type of cells are these epithelium? Simple columnar with cilia and mucus secretion on top. Here's a goblet cell, by the way. I was telling you, it looks like a wine glass upside down. Serous membranes line cavities that don't open to the outside. They're thin but strong. The parietal portion lines the inner surface of the cavity. The visceral portion, the serosa, covers the organ. And the serous fluid reduces friction, slippery when wet. Serous membranes exist in the peritoneum. They line the peritoneal cavity and cover the abdominal organs. The pleura lines pleural cavities and covers the lungs. Pericardium lines the pericardial cavity and covers the heart. So this is the mesothelium. Notice it's one layer thick, squamous cells like pavers with serous fluid above it and areolar connective tissue below it. So this is a serous membrane. Cutaneous membrane is the skin that covers the body. It's thick, relatively waterproof, and usually dry. Synovial membranes line synovial joint cavities. Movement stimulates the production of synovial fluid for lubrication. It's not a true epithelium. Synoviocytes are a type of connective tissue cell. Now, the doctor who did my colonoscopy today told me that he plays pickleball. And he injured his knees playing pickleball. And he gets injections of knee fluid. He gets artificial knee fluid injected into his knees. And it lubricates the joint and helps the arthritis that he has. So one of the treatments for osteoarthritis of the knee is injecting artificial knee fluid. So this is the cutaneous membrane, the skin. Stratified squamous, the apical layer is flat and squamous. The bottom layer might be cuboidal. Synovial membranes. Here is the capsule around a joint. These are the bones that you see here. This is the cartilage, the articular cartilage, that makes it smooth so the bones don't grind against each other. It's a very smooth, slick surface. And this is the synovial fluid, which reduces friction. Now, has anybody ever seen a chicken bone, the end of the leg of a chicken bone? Like it's very smooth, or turkey bone, very smooth. That's because of the cartilage, the articular cartilage. The cells are called synoviocytes. It wrongly labels them epithelium. It's not an epithelial cell. It's a synoviocyte, which is connective tissue cell. muscle tissue is specialized for contraction. And there's 3 types of muscle tissue. Skeletal muscle, which is large muscles responsible for body movement. Cardiac muscle, which is found only in the heart. And smooth muscle, which is found in the walls of hollow, contracting organs. Skeletal muscle tissue consists of long, thin cells called muscle fibers, and these cells don't divide. New fibers are produced by divisions of what's called myosatellite cells. It's striated voluntary muscle. What does striated mean?
Describe it.
What is striated? If I show you a picture, will you figure it out? That's striated. Stripes, right? Those are striations, those stripes. Notice it has multiple nuclei. These are long fibers. They can be as long as 18 inches long. One cell, 18 inches long. That's a big cell. One muscle fiber is one cell. Multiple nuclei, striated, and voluntary muscle. Cardiac muscle is not straight. It's short fibers that have branching, and they're joined by a Velcro called intercalated discs. They beat, the heart beats because of pacemaker cells, which will fire at a certain rate. Somewhere between 60 and 100 beats per minute is an average heartbeat. And the slower your heartbeat is, the stronger your heart is. If you have a resting heart rate that's close to 100, that means your heart is not very, very strong. If you're an athlete and your heart is close to 40 or 50, that means that you have a strong heart. It doesn't have to beat as many times to get the blood around the body. So it can beat more forcefully with fewer contractions. It can pump the blood to the rest of the body. So if it's too slow, you pass out, obviously. If your heart rate is 30, you're going to pass out. It's striated as well, but it's an involuntary muscle. You don't control your heartbeat. It goes off because of firing of the pacemaker cells. Smooth muscle cells are small and spindle-shaped. They can divide and regenerate. And they're non-striated, involuntary muscle. Why is it called smooth muscle? Why is it called smooth muscle? The answer is staring at you. No striations, right? That's why it's smooth muscle, right? Not striations. I told you the answer was laying there. So these are cardiac muscle cells. Notice the striations. These are the intercalated discs, the Velcro that joins the cells. Not only is it like Velcro, remember we talked about gap junctions. The gap junctions exist in the heart, and the muscle of the heart will beat simultaneously. The ventricles will beat simultaneously. Notice they're branched, and they're not very long. These cells are short. This is a light micrograph showing the heart cells, one nucleus per cell. Smooth muscle is shown here, and it's spindle-shaped. It's thicker in the middle, tapered at the ends, and you can see it on the light micrograph as well. You can find it in blood vessels, in the digestive tract, the respiratory, urinary, and reproductive organs. Nervous tissue is specialized for conducting electrical impulses. It's concentrated in the brain and spinal cord. Types of cells in nervous tissue are neurons and neuroglia. Before I talk about nervous tissue, I just want to make a point. Skeletal muscle repairs itself very slowly. Heart muscle does not repair itself at all. When part of the heart muscle dies, it forms scar tissue. it doesn't grow back. So when someone has a heart attack and part of their heart dies, it becomes scar tissue. Smooth muscle, on the other hand, divides like crazy. So if you lose some smooth muscle, you're going to make more smooth muscle. So if you lose some cells in your bladder, you're going to make more cells, more smooth muscle cells. Now, the reason I bring that up is because neurons don't multiply. The amount of brain cells you have when you're in kindergarten is the most amount of brain cells you're going to have. It's all downhill from kindergarten. You start losing brain cells as you get older, like my age, 65. You start losing brain cells. So it's all downhill from kindergarten. So neurons don't divide. Neuroglia, the supporting cells, do divide, and they outnumber neurons 10 to 1. Now, brain cancer does not develop from neurons, but from neuroglia, brain cancer. Why do you think that is? Why does brain cancer not develop from neurons?
Because neurons don't multiply.
Right, exactly. Neurons don't multiply, they don't divide. Neuroglia, on the other hand, divide rapidly, and you've heard of the condition glioblastoma or meningioma. Those are types of brain cancer. Parts of a neuron, the cell body, contains the nucleus and nucleolus. Dendrites are short branches that extend from the cell body, and they receive incoming electrical signals. And dendrites in Greek means little trees, and it looks like little trees without the leaves, like trees in the winter. Axon is a nerve fiber. It's a long, thin extension of the cell body. It carries outgoing electrical signals to their destination, whether it be another neuron, a gland, or a muscle. So here is the cell body, the nucleus, the nucleolus. These are the dendrites. You can't see them very well on this light micrograph. It's hard to tell which is a dendrite and which is an axon. In the diagram that's coming up, you'll see it more clearly. These are neuroglia supporting cells. They help repair tissue after injury. Remember I said to you that brain cells, when they die, you lose them. Same as the heart, you form scar tissue. So if someone has a stroke and part of their brain dies, it doesn't grow back. It forms scar tissue. And the cells that form the scar tissue are called astrocytes, and they look like little stars. So this is a typical neuron. Here's the dendrites. Doesn't it look like trees in the winter? And here's the cell body, also known as the soma, the nucleus, the nucleolus, rough endoplasmic reticulum, mitochondria, and the rough endoplasmic reticulum in the neuron is called Nissl bodies. And the reason I tell you that about the Nissl bodies is the reason your brain is gray, the color gray comes from the Nissl bodies. That's what gives the brain its gray color on the outside. This is the axon, this long tube here. These are the synaptic terminals that make contact with other cells. Tissues respond to injury in two stages: inflammation, the inflammatory response, and regeneration to restore normal function. The inflammatory response can be triggered by trauma, physical injury, or infection, the presence of pathogens. Damaged cells release prostaglandins, proteins, and potassium ions. Damaged connective tissue activates mast cells. Where is there more potassium? Inside the cell or outside the cell? Inside the cell. Remember we said sodium is outside the cell, potassium is inside the cell. So when the cell is damaged, that potassium leaks out of the cell. Damaged connective tissue activates mast cells, which, if you recall from earlier, we talked about what mast cells make, which is histamine and heparin. The process of inflammation, lysosomes release enzymes that destroy the injured cells and attack surrounding tissues. Tissue destruction is called necrosis, and it begins several hours after injury. Necrotic tissue and cellular debris, called pus, accumulate in the wound. An abscess is pus trapped in an enclosed area. The ability to regenerate varies among tissues. Epithelia, connective tissue, except cartilage, and smooth muscle regenerate well. Skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle, and nervous tissue regenerate poorly, if at all. Damaged cardiac muscle cells are replaced by fibrous tissue through fibrosis. Fibrosis is just another way of saying scar tissue. So this is inflammation. The poor kid has scraped his knee. The injured tissue contains abnormal concentration of pathogens, toxins, wastes, and chemicals from the injured cells. It activates mast cells, which releases histamine and heparin. These are the granules. You see these dark little purple things here. These are granules of histamine. And the process is called mast cell activation, which stimulates inflammation. When the mast cell releases histamine and heparin and prostaglandins, it does several things. It produces redness, heat, swelling, and pain. Those are called the cardinal signs of inflammation. Redness, heat or warmth, swelling, and pain. And it's due to increased blood flow. In response to released chemicals, blood vessels dilate, increasing blood flow to the damaged tissue. That's from the histamine. The vessel dilates with an increase in permeability of the capillary walls, and the plasma diffuses into the injured tissue, so the area becomes swollen. Pain, the abnormal conditions within the tissue, the chemicals released by mast cells stimulate nerve endings that produce the sensation of pain. So one of the effects of inflammation is increased local temperature, increased oxygen and nutrients from vessel dilation, increased phagocytosis, cells will engulf debris and pathogens, and removal of wastes and toxins. Aging and tissue structure. The speed and effectiveness of tissue regeneration decreases with age due to a slowing of repair and maintenance activities, hormonal alterations, a decrease in estrogen and testosterone, and reduced physical activity, causing muscle wasting. Effects of aging. Chemical and structural tissue changes. Some of the tissue changes are thinner epithelia, fragile connective tissues, people who are older break bones more easily, increased bruising, brittle bones, cardiovascular disease, and mental deterioration. These are the golden years. Aging and cancer incidence. Cancer rates increase with age. 25% of all the people in the United States develop cancer. Cancer, 1 out of 4 people will develop cancer. Cancer is the leading cause of death in the second leading cause of death in the United States. Most cancers are caused by chemical exposure or environmental factors. It's rarely a family history that causes the cancer. It's usually chemical factors. Only a small percentage of cancers are caused by heredity. 40% of cancer cases are caused by cigarette smoke. And that's a lot of cancer. Now, the rate of cancer has been going up in the younger population. It used to be that colonoscopies were done for people over age 50. They've lowered that age to 45. Breast cancer screening used to be for women 50 plus. Now it's 40. So the incidence of cancer has gone up in the younger population. You have to wonder, is it the pollutants that are in our environment? What's causing this increase in cancer rate? We're not just detecting it better, it's occurring at a younger age. So, you know what that means?